I'll defend him.
The courtroom exploded in laughter. Isaac Ingram, 18, black, faced a room that wanted him gone. His father behind him, orange jumpsuit, handcuffed.
A janitor's kid playing lawyer. What's next, a monkey in a suit defending a case? Your Honor, give the boy 10 minutes, let him bark. Dogs get tired eventually.
Isaac's jaw tightened.
10 minutes is more than I need, sir.
But his voice came out cold, steady. Sullivan smirked. He thought 10 minutes would bury this boy. He had no idea that those 10 minutes would destroy his 30-year career, end with handcuffs on his own witness, and leave him standing in silence while an 18-year-old received a standing ovation from the same room that just laughed. 6 months earlier. The alarm hit at 5:15 a.m. Not a phone alarm. Isaac Ingram didn't own a phone. It was an old wind-up clock, the kind that rattled on the nightstand like it was angry at the world. Isaac was already awake. He swung his legs off the mattress, a twin bed he'd outgrown 2 years ago, and stood in the dark. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that doubled as a living room. South side of Greenfield, the part of town where the streetlights flickered and the landlords didn't return calls. The wallpaper peeled near the ceiling. The radiator clanked every 10 minutes like a broken heartbeat. He ironed his school shirt on the kitchen counter. No ironing board. A folded towel worked fine. He made oatmeal for his sister Amara, 12, quiet, too smart for her age. She'd been that way since their mother died 4 years ago. Cancer. No insurance. Gone in 3 months. Isaac never talked about it. Neither did Elijah. What Isaac did talk about, to himself late at night in the glow of a single desk lamp, was the law. On his nightstand, next to the rattling clock, sat a worn copy of Constitutional Law, Principles and Policies. Dog-eared, highlighted, sticky notes poking out from every chapter like tiny yellow flags. He'd found it in the courthouse library 3 years ago, tucked behind a row of outdated tax manuals nobody touched. He read it the way other kids read comics. Then he read another, and another. Case studies, precedents, procedural codes. 3 years of teaching himself what law students paid thousands to learn. Nobody knew. Not his teachers, not his friends, not even Elijah. Elijah Ingram woke at 4:30 every morning. First shift, janitor at Greenfield County Courthouse. Second shift, warehouse loader at a distribution center across town. Home by midnight, up again at 4:30. 7 days a week. No vacations, no sick days. A body running on coffee and stubbornness. 11 years at that courthouse. He knew every hallway, every stairwell, every crack in the marble that the county never bothered to fix. He carried a master key on his belt, access to every room in the building, the records archive, the maintenance closets, the security office. Nobody thought twice about it. A janitor with keys was just part of the furniture. And that's exactly how they treated him. The lawyers walked past him like he was a mop holder. The clerks talked over him like he wasn't there. He cleaned the bathrooms they used, emptied the trash they filled, fixed the chairs they broke. Not once in 11 years did anyone say thank you. But one person made it worse than silence. Bradley Carson, court clerk, mid-40s, thin smile that never reached his eyes. Carson treated Elijah like a personal servant. Carry my briefcase, get my coffee, wipe down my desk before I sit down. And always with that voice, slow, loud, like he was talking to a child who couldn't understand English. Elijah, you missed a spot. Again. Elijah, I shouldn't have to tell you twice. Elijah, don't they teach you people how to clean properly? Carson reported directly to one man, Garrett Sullivan. Sullivan's office sat on the 3rd floor, dark wood, leather chair, framed awards covering every wall. An American flag in the corner, pressed and perfect. 30 years as a prosecutor, highest conviction rate in the county, every year. No exceptions. But behind those awards lived a different story. 12 formal complaints of racial bias filed by public defenders, paralegals, even a fellow prosecutor. Every single one buried, dismissed, lost in paperwork. Sullivan had friends on the review board, friends who owed him favors, friends who looked the other way. Now Sullivan wanted more. A judgeship. The governor's office had an opening, and Sullivan's name was on the short list. But a judicial appointment required a clean record, spotless reputation, 0 scandals. Which meant one thing. Anything that threatened Garrett Sullivan's image had to disappear. Quietly, quickly, completely. And right now, the only person standing in a place where he could become a problem was a black janitor who had keys to every room in the building. Elijah didn't know it yet, but he was already a target. And his son, the boy with the law books and the rattling alarm clock, had no idea that everything was about to fall apart. It happened on a Monday. Elijah was buffing the second-floor hallway when 2 Greenfield County deputies walked through the front entrance. They weren't there for a hearing. They were there for him. "Elijah Ingram?" He looked up, rag in one hand, spray bottle in the other. "Yes, sir." "Turn around. Hands behind your back." He didn't resist. Didn't ask why. He just set the spray bottle on the floor, placed the rag beside it, and turned around. The handcuffs clicked shut in the middle of the main lobby. 8:47 a.m. The courthouse was full. Lawyers stopped mid-conversation. Clerks froze at their desks. A woman carrying a stack of case files nearly dropped them. Everyone watched. Nobody stepped forward. The charge? Theft of $15,000 worth of computer equipment from the courthouse IT room. The accusation came from one man, Bradley Carson. His written statement claimed he saw Elijah carrying boxes from the IT room after hours on the night of March 14th. Elijah was in the building that night. That part was true. He'd been doing overtime cleaning, the West Wing, 3rd floor, bathrooms, conference rooms, the same route he'd taken 1,000 times. But the IT room was on the 2nd floor, East Wing, a completely different part of the building. He tried to say that. Right there in the lobby, hands cuffed behind his back, he tried. "I wasn't anywhere near that room. Check my cleaning log. I was on the west." "Save it for the judge," the deputy said. They walked him out the front door, past the metal detectors, past the security desk, past the same floors he'd mopped that morning. His mop was still leaning against the wall, right where he'd left it. The bucket still had water in it. Nobody moved it. Nobody touched it. It just stood there, like a ghost of the man who'd been dragged away. The news hit the Ingram apartment before Elijah's phone call did. Isaac was walking Amara home from school when a neighbor held up her phone. Local news. A headline that punched a hole through his chest. "Greenfield Courthouse janitor arrested for equipment theft." There was a photo. Elijah in handcuffs, head down, standing in the lobby he'd cleaned for 11 years. Isaac didn't say a word. He took Amara's hand, walked her home, sat her at the kitchen table, and told her to start her homework. Then he went to his room, closed the door, and stood there in the dark for a long time. The phone rang at 6 p.m. Collect call from Greenfield County Jail. Elijah's voice was thin, controlled, the kind of calm that only comes when someone is trying very hard not to break. "I didn't do this, Isaac." "I know, Dad. They're saying I took computers. Boxes of them. I don't even know how to turn one on." Silence. "Dad, what's the bail?" 10,000. Isaac closed his eyes. 10,000. They had $213 in the checking account. The rent was due Friday. "If I get convicted," Elijah said, quieter now, They're talking 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. Isaac did the math in his head. Not the numbers, the consequences. Amara was 12. She'd be in foster care by the end of the month. The apartment would be gone. Everything their mother had held together with her bare hands. Gone. Don't sign anything, Dad. Don't agree to anything. I'm going to figure this out. Isaac, I'll figure it out. He hung up, sat at the kitchen table, opened his law book. Over the next 3 days, Isaac visited every lawyer in Greenfield he could find. 5 offices, 5 conversations, 5 dead ends. The first one charged $300 just for a consultation. Isaac had $40 in his pocket. The second one listened for 2 minutes, then said, "Public defender will handle it. Take a number." The third one leaned back in his chair and said the thing Isaac would never forget. "Son, nobody goes up against Garrett Sullivan and wins. Not in this town. Not ever." The fourth one didn't even let him sit down. The fifth one was the worst. She looked at Isaac with something that might have been pity and said, "Tell your father to take the plea deal. 18 months. He'll be out in 12 with good behavior. It's the smart move." The plea deal. Sullivan's office had already sent it over. Plead guilty, serve 18 months, no trial. Case closed. Isaac read it at the kitchen table that night. Every word, every clause. He read it the way he read law books, slow, careful, looking for the thing that everyone else missed. And he found it. The plea required Elijah to admit guilt, on record, permanently. A convicted felon. No courthouse would hire him again. No warehouse would take him. No landlord would rent to him. The deal didn't just take 18 months of his father's life. It erased his future. Sullivan knew that. That's why the deal was so clean, so fast, so generous. He wasn't offering mercy. He was buying silence. Isaac pushed the plea deal to the edge of the table. He stared at it for a long time. Then he looked at his shelf, the law books, the sticky notes, the yellow legal pads filled with 3 years of handwritten case studies. He looked at Amara's door. She was asleep. He looked at the empty chair where his mother used to sit. Then he pulled out a fresh legal pad, uncapped a pen, and started writing. Midnight. The apartment was silent except for the radiator and the scratch of pen on paper. Isaac Ingram was done waiting for someone to save his father. He was going to do it himself. The visiting room at Greenfield County Jail smelled like bleach and bad coffee. Plastic chairs, scratched plexiglass dividers, a phone on each side that crackled when you picked it up. Isaac sat down. Elijah sat on the other side. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. His shoulders slumped. His eyes were flat. The orange jumpsuit hung off him like it belonged to someone bigger, someone who hadn't stopped eating from stress. Isaac picked up the phone. Elijah picked up his. "Dad, don't sign the deal." Elijah exhaled. "Isaac, I've been thinking." "Don't sign it." "Son, listen to me. If I take the deal, I'm out in 12 months. You and Amara stay with Aunt Denise. You finish school. Life goes on." "Life doesn't go on, Dad. You'll have a felony on your record. No one will hire you. No apartment. No second chance. Sullivan isn't giving you a deal. He's burying you quiet." Elijah pressed his forehead against the glass. "Then what? I sit in here and wait for a miracle?" "No. You sit in here and wait for me." Silence. "What are you talking about?" Isaac pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and pressed it against the glass. Elijah squinted at it. A printed page, Section 14-22 of the Greenfield County Procedural Code. County law allows a family member to serve as legal representative in county-level criminal proceedings, with the judge's approval. It's rarely used, Most people don't even know it exists. Elijah stared at him. Isaac, you're 18. The statute doesn't mention age. It says family member. I'm your son. You're not a lawyer. Neither was the last person who used this statute. She was a mother defending her son in 2014. She won. Elijah leaned back. His hand trembled against the phone. How do you know all this? Isaac didn't blink. I've been reading every law book in your courthouse for 3 years, Dad. Every case file I could get my hands on, every statute, every precedent, every loophole. I know how Sullivan builds his cases. I know where he cuts corners. I know how Carson files reports. I know that building better than some of the lawyers who work there. Elijah's eyes filled. He didn't speak for a long time. Your mother, he finally said. She always said you were different. I'm not different, Dad. I just pay attention. The next morning, Isaac put on his cleanest shirt, a white button-down with a small stain on the left cuff that he hid by rolling the sleeves, and walked into the Greenfield County Courthouse. Not through the back entrance Elijah used, through the front door. Past the metal detectors, past the security desk, past the spot on the marble floor where his father had been handcuffed. He went straight to the clerk's office. The woman behind the counter was Dorothy Adams, 62. Gray hair pinned back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd worked in that office for 26 years. She was also the only person in the entire courthouse who said good morning to Elijah every single day. Isaac placed the paperwork on the counter. I'd like to file a motion to represent my father as family counsel. Section 14-22. Dorothy looked at the paper. Then she looked at Isaac. Then back at the paper. You're Elijah's boy. Yes, ma'am. She picked up the motion, read it line by line. Her eyebrows lifted once, then again. You wrote this yourself? Yes, ma'am. She set it down, took off her glasses, and looked at him the way nobody in that building had ever looked at anyone named Ingram. You sure about this, sweetheart? Once this goes through, you're standing in that courtroom, alone, against Sullivan's office. I know. Dorothy held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded, stamped the filing, slid it into the processing tray. Your father's a good man, Isaac. I hope you know what you're doing. Word spread through the courthouse in under an hour. The janitor's kid filed a motion to play lawyer. The jokes wrote themselves. Isaac heard them in the hallways, in the elevator, at the water fountain. Whispers that weren't trying to be whispers. Did you hear? The mop boy wants to defend his daddy. He's 18. What's he going to do? Cite Wikipedia? Sullivan's going to eat him alive. One voice cut louder than the rest. Sullivan himself. Standing in the third-floor corridor with Carson beside him. Isaac was walking toward the stairwell when he heard it. Let the boy play lawyer. It'll be over in 10 minutes. Might even be entertaining. Carson laughed. Should we even prepare? Sullivan straightened his tie. For what? He's a kid with a library card. The judge will shut it down before lunch. Isaac kept walking. He didn't turn around, didn't react, but he heard every word, and he filed every word in the same place he filed case law, in the part of his brain that never forgot. That night, Isaac began his preparation. The public library stayed open until 9 p.m. Isaac was there at 3:30, right after school. He sat at a corner table with a stack of legal reference books and his yellow legal pad. He studied wrongful accusation cases, evidence tampering precedents, chain of custody procedures, cross-examination techniques. He read about how prosecutors build narratives, and how those narratives fall apart when the evidence doesn't match. He reviewed the courthouse building layout from memory. He'd walked those halls 100 times visiting his father. He knew which cameras covered which corridors. He knew where the blind spots were. He knew the IT room was on the second floor, east wing. and he knew his father was never assigned to clean that floor. He wrote his opening statement on the legal pad, crossed it out, wrote it again, crossed it out, wrote it a third time, shorter, sharper, every word earning its place. At home, he practiced in his bedroom, standing in front of the mirror, delivering his arguments to his own reflection. Amara appeared in the doorway once, holding a glass of water. "What are you doing?" "Practicing." "For what?" "For Dad." She set the water on his desk, stood there for a moment, then said, quiet as a whisper, "You're gonna win, right?" Isaac looked at her reflection in the mirror. 12 years old, already carrying more weight than any kid should. "I'm gonna try, Amara." She nodded, walked back to her room, closed the door without a sound. Isaac turned back to the mirror, took a breath, and started again from the top. The night before the trial, he sat at the kitchen table one last time, notes spread across every inch of the surface. His legal pad, filled front and back, 46 pages. A timeline of the night in question, a list of questions for Bradley Carson. A copy of Section 1422 with key passages highlighted in yellow. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from everything. The weight of it, the size of it, the fact that tomorrow he would stand in a room full of adults who wanted him to fail, and he had one chance to prove them wrong. One chance. He pressed his palms flat on the table, steadied his breathing, looked at the empty chair across from him. His mother's chair. "I got this, Mom," he whispered. Then he gathered his notes, turned off the lamp, and went to bed. Tomorrow, the boy with the rattling alarm clock would walk into courtroom 3. And nothing in Greenfield County would ever be the same. The morning of the trial, Isaac arrived at the courthouse at 6:15 a.m. The building was nearly empty. A security guard nodded at him from behind the front desk. The hallways stretched out long and quiet. No lawyers, no clerks, no laughter. Just the hum of the overhead lights and the echo of his sneakers on marble. He wasn't there early to rehearse, he was there to walk. Isaac retraced his father's route from the night of March 14th. He started on the 3rd floor, West Wing, where Elijah's cleaning log said he'd been assigned. Bathrooms, conference rooms, the long hallway past the judge's chambers. Every step mapped in Isaac's mind like a grid. Then he walked to the 2nd floor, East Wing, the IT room. The place where $15,000 worth of equipment supposedly vanished. He stood in front of the locked door and looked up. A security camera, small, mounted in the corner where the ceiling met the wall. Red light blinking. Isaac already knew something that nobody in Sullivan's office had bothered to check. His father's cleaning assignment that night was the West Wing, 3rd floor. The IT room was on the 2nd floor, East Wing. There was no overlap. No reason for Elijah to be anywhere near that room. The cleaning log proved it. But that wasn't enough. A cleaning log could be dismissed. Sullivan would call it a piece of paper. He needed more. Isaac pulled out a folded document from his back pocket. He'd requested it 3 days ago from the county clerk's office, a public record available to anyone who asked. Nobody ever did. The courthouse maintenance access log. Every room that required special clearance, the IT room, the evidence storage, the security office, kept a sign-in sheet. Date, time, name, signature. It was policy. Nobody could enter those rooms without logging in. Isaac ran his finger down the entries for March 14th. 8 a.m. Thomas Briley, IT department. Routine check. 2:15 p.m. Thomas Briley, IT department. Software update. 11:45 p.m. Bradley Carson. Isaac stopped breathing. 11:45 p.m. Bradley Carson signed into the IT room at 11:45 p.m. on the night of the alleged theft. His own handwriting, his own signature. The same man who claimed he saw Elijah carrying boxes out of that room at 11:30 p.m. The math didn't add up. And that was the point. If Carson saw Elijah stealing equipment at 11:30, if he witnessed it with his own eyes, why did he walk into that same room 15 minutes later? Why didn't he call security? Why didn't he report it immediately? Why did he wait until the next morning? Because he didn't see anything. Because Elijah was never there. Because Bradley Carson was the one carrying those boxes. Isaac held the maintenance log with both hands. His fingers trembled against the edges. Not from fear, from the electricity of knowing. The certainty of it. The kind of certainty that changes everything. Carson had signed his own confession. He just didn't know it yet. But Isaac still needed one more thing: the security camera footage. He couldn't access it himself. That would be illegal, and anything he pulled would be thrown out. So he did it the right way. The legal way. He sat on a bench outside courtroom 3, pulled out his yellow legal pad, and drafted a subpoena request for the courthouse security footage from March 14th, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., second floor, east wing. Camera angles covering the IT room corridor and the loading dock. Clean, specific, by the book. He filed it with Dorothy Adams at 7:30 a.m. She read it, looked at him over her glasses, and stamped it without a word. Isaac walked out of the clerk's office and passed the IT room one more time. He glanced up at the camera. Red light still blinking. That camera had seen everything. And in 2 hours, so would the judge. Orchestrated narrative structure for opening conflict scene. Orchestrated narrative structure for opening conflict scene. Courtroom 3, 9 a.m. sharp. The room was packed. Word had spread through Greenfield like wildfire. The janitor's kid was going to defend his father in open court. People came to watch the way people slow down for car wrecks. Not out of sympathy, out of curiosity. Out of hunger for something to laugh about over lunch. Every seat in the gallery was taken. Clerks, who had no business being there, leaned against the back wall. 2 local reporters sat in the second row with notebooks open. Even lawyers from other floors found excuses to stop by. They weren't there to see justice. They were there to see a boy fail. Judge Nolan Whitmore entered from the side door. 62. Silver hair, steel-rimmed glasses, 30 years on the bench. He was known for 2 things: his patience and his zero tolerance for wasted time. He sat down, adjusted his microphone, and scanned the room. His eyes landed on Isaac, standing at the defense table. Yellow legal pad, manila folder, a pen tucked behind his ear. Wearing Elijah's suit jacket, charcoal gray, shoulders too wide, sleeves rolled once at the cuffs. His shirt was pressed. His shoes were clean. His face showed nothing. Beside him sat Elijah. Orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front. He stared at the table. He hadn't looked up since they brought him in. Across the aisle, Garrett Sullivan sat at the prosecution's table with a junior prosecutor named Trent Holloway. Sullivan's posture was loose, relaxed, like a man who'd already won and was just waiting for the paperwork. Judge Whitmore spoke first. I understand the defense has filed a motion for family representation under Section 14-22. Is the representative present? Isaac stood. Yes, Your Honor. Isaac Ingram. I'm the defendant's son. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Someone in the back row snorted. Whitmore studied him. Mr. Ingram, you understand that by filing this motion, you are assuming full responsibility for your father's legal defense. You will be held to the same standard as any licensed attorney in this room. No exceptions, no allowances. I understand, Your Honor. And you are 18 years of age? Yes, sir. Whitmore glanced at the filing, read it again. His eyebrows moved, just slightly. The motion was clean, properly formatted, every citation correct. He looked back at Isaac with something that wasn't quite respect, not yet, but wasn't dismissal either. Motion granted. Proceed. Sullivan leaned over to Holloway and whispered something. Holloway smirked. The judge nodded to the prosecution. Mr. Sullivan, your opening statement. Sullivan stood the way he always stood. Slow, deliberate, like the room owed him its attention. He buttoned his jacket, walked to the center of the floor, and began. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. Elijah Ingram was employed as a janitor at this courthouse for 11 years. He had unrestricted access to every room in this building, including the IT department on the second floor. On the night of March 14th, he used that access to remove $15,000 worth of computer equipment. A trusted courthouse employee witnessed the theft. The evidence is clear. The defendant betrayed the trust of this institution. He paused, let the words hang, then added, almost casually, the prosecution will be brief, because frankly, this case doesn't require much. He sat down. The gallery nodded along like churchgoers hearing a sermon they already believed. Whitmore turned to Isaac. Mr. Ingram, your opening statement. Isaac stood. He didn't walk to the center. He stayed behind the defense table, close to his father. He held his legal pad but didn't look at it. The courtroom was silent. Not the respectful kind. The waiting kind. The kind that comes before someone falls. Isaac spoke. Your Honor, my father has worked in this building for 11 years, 5,500 days. He's mopped every floor, cleaned every restroom, and fixed things that weren't even in his job description. In all that time, not one complaint, not one warning, not one missing paperclip. He paused. The prosecution says this is straightforward. I agree, but not for the reasons Mr. Sullivan thinks. Sullivan's smile flickered. This case rests entirely on the testimony of one man, Bradley Carson. One witness, one statement. No physical evidence presented, no forensic report, no fingerprints, no inventory audit trail connecting my father to the missing equipment. Isaac looked at the judge. Your Honor, I don't have a law degree. I don't have a suit that fits, but I have something the prosecution doesn't. He set his legal pad on the table. The truth. And before this hearing ends, this court will know exactly where that truth has been hiding, and who's been hiding it. Silence. Not the laughing kind, not the waiting kind, the real kind. The kind where people forget to breathe. A woman in the gallery uncrossed her arms. A reporter stopped writing and just looked up. Even Holloway, Sullivan's junior, shifted in his seat. Sullivan's face didn't change, but his hand moved to his tie. He straightened it, the way a man does when he feels something tighten around his neck. Whitmore wrote something on his notepad, then looked up. The defense has also filed a subpoena for courthouse security footage from the night in question. Mr. Sullivan, I understand you have an objection. Sullivan stood. Your Honor, this is a fishing expedition. The defense, if we can even call it that, is a teenager requesting surveillance footage with no foundation and no relevance. This is a waste of the court's time. Isaac didn't hesitate. Your Honor, in State v. Caldwell, 2016, the appellate court ruled that in theft cases involving disputed eyewitness testimony, the defense has an absolute right to examine any available physical evidence, including surveillance records. The footage exists. It's stored on courthouse servers, and it covers the exact corridor where the alleged theft took place. He said it from memory. No notes, no hesitation. Like he was reading it off the inside of his skull. Whitmore looked at Sullivan. Objection overruled. The footage will be produced. Sullivan sat down. Slowly. For the first time in the entire proceeding, he wasn't smiling. And somewhere in the gallery, Dorothy Adams, the clerk who'd stamped Isaac's filing that morning, pressed her hand to her chest and whispered something no one else could hear. Lord have mercy, that boy came ready. The courtroom technician arrived 12 minutes later. A young man in a wrinkled polo shirt carrying a laptop and a tangle of cables. He sat up on a small table between the prosecution and defense, angled the screen toward the judge, and plugged in the external hard drive containing the courthouse security footage. The room shifted. The casual energy, the smirks, the whispered jokes, the "we're here for the show" attitude was gone. Something else had taken its place. Something heavier. Anticipation. Judge Whitmore looked at both tables. The footage has been produced. Before we proceed, are there any motions? Sullivan stood immediately. Your Honor, the prosecution requests a 15-minute recess to review the newly produced evidence. Whitmore nodded. Granted, 15 minutes. Court is in recess. The gavel came down. People stood, stretched, murmured, but nobody left. Not a single person walked out of that courtroom. They could feel it, the way you feel rain before it hits. Something was coming. Isaac stayed at the defense table. He didn't move, didn't stand, didn't check his phone. He still didn't own one. He sat with his hands flat on the table, his legal pad open to a page filled with handwritten questions, numbered, organized, each one leading to the next like dominoes set in a line. Elijah leaned toward him. Isaac, what's on that footage? Isaac looked at his father. The truth, Dad. But what if... Trust me. Elijah searched his son's face, looking for doubt, looking for fear. He didn't find either. He found something he hadn't seen since his wife was alive. Certainty. The kind that doesn't come from hoping, the kind that comes from knowing. He nodded, sat back, and for the first time in weeks, Elijah Ingram took a full breath. Meanwhile, the hallway outside courtroom 3 told a very different story. Garrett Sullivan walked fast. His heels hit the marble in sharp, angry cracks. Bradley Carson was already waiting near the water fountain, arms crossed, face the color of old milk. Sullivan grabbed Carson's elbow and pulled him around the corner, out of sight, out of earshot, or so he thought. You told me there were no cameras on that floor. Carson's mouth opened. Nothing came out. You sat in my office and told me, no cameras, no footage, clean job. Those were your exact words. I thought they were turned off, Carson stammered. There was a maintenance rotation. The East Wing cameras were supposed to be down for updates. Supposed to be? Sullivan's voice was a blade wrapped in silk. Quiet, controlled, lethal. You thought? You supposed? I built this case on your statement, Bradley, your eyewitness account. If that footage shows anything that contradicts what you told the police, it won't. Carson's voice cracked. It can't. I checked the schedule. Those cameras were offline. Then why does that boy look like he already knows what's on them? Carson had no answer for that. Sullivan straightened his jacket, smoothed his tie, took a breath. Fix this. I don't care how. When we get back in there, you stick to your story, word for word. Don't add anything. Don't improvise. Just repeat exactly what you told the police. And if the footage... If the footage is a problem, I'll get it excluded. That's my job. Your job is to not fall apart on the stand. Sullivan walked away, back straight, chin up, every step measured. The picture of control. But his hands, shoved deep in his pockets, were balled into fists. What neither of them knew was that Isaac had stepped out of the courtroom 30 seconds before them. He'd gone to the water fountain on the other side of the hallway, The sound carried around the marble corners the way sound always carries in old buildings, bouncing off stone, finding ears that weren't meant to hear it. Isaac heard everything. He walked back into the courtroom, sat down, picked up his pen, and added 2 new questions to his list. The bailiff called the room to order. People settled. The judge returned. The technician confirmed the footage was ready. Whitmore looked at Isaac. "Mr. Ingram, you may proceed." Isaac stood, but he didn't ask for the footage. Not yet. Instead, he looked directly at the prosecution's table, then at the gallery, then at the judge. "Your Honor, before we review the footage, I'd like to call Bradley Carson to the stand." The courtroom went still. Sullivan's head snapped up. "Objection. Mr. Carson is a prosecution witness. The defense cannot—" "Mr. Carson was listed on the prosecution's own witness roster," Isaac said calmly. "Under Greenfield procedural rules, either party may call a listed witness during evidentiary proceedings. I'm exercising that right." Whitmore checked the roster, looked at Sullivan. "The witness is listed. Objection overruled. Mr. Carson, please take the stand." Every head in the gallery turned toward the back of the courtroom. Carson sat in the 3rd row. His face was white. His hands gripped the bench in front of him like he was holding onto the edge of a cliff. He stood, slowly, walked to the front, each step heavier than the last. The bailiff held out a Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Carson's eyes darted to Sullivan. Sullivan stared straight ahead. No rescue. No signal. Nothing. "I do," Carson said. His voice broke on the second word. Isaac picked up his legal pad, stepped out from behind the defense table, and for the first time in the entire proceeding, he smiled. Not a happy smile, not a nervous smile, the smile of someone who already knows how this ends. Isaac stood 6 feet from the witness stand, legal pad in his left hand, pen in his right. No podium, no table between them, just open floor and silence. He started simple. "Mr. Carson, how long have you worked at Greenfield County Courthouse?" Carson cleared his throat. 14 years. "And your role is court clerk, correct?" "Yes." "In that role, do you interact with the janitorial staff?" "Occasionally." "Occasionally." Isaac repeated the word the way a doctor repeats a symptom, noting it, filing it. "You interact with my father, Elijah Ingram, occasionally?" Carson shifted. "Yes." "Mr. Carson, in your written statement to police, you said you witnessed my father carrying boxes from the IT room at approximately 11:30 p.m. on March 14th. Is that correct?" "That's what I saw." "And the IT room is located on the 2nd floor, east wing of this building?" "Yes." "You're certain about that? 2nd floor, east wing?" Carson's jaw tightened. "I know where the IT room is." "Good." Isaac flipped a page on his legal pad. "Mr. Carson, can you tell the court what floor my father was assigned to clean on the night of March 14th? Silence. "Mr. Carson?" I'm not in charge of cleaning schedules." Isaac walked to the defense table, picked up a single sheet of paper, held it up. "This is the official cleaning assignment log for March 14th, signed by the facilities manager. It shows that Elijah Ingram was assigned to the West Wing, 3rd floor, bathrooms, conference rooms, judges' chambers." He looked at Carson. "The West Wing, Mr. Carson, 3rd floor. Not the East Wing, not the 2nd floor, not anywhere near the IT room." Carson opened his mouth, closed it. "My father was never on that floor. The log confirms it. His keycard swipe data confirms it. So I have to ask, if my father was 3 floors away and an entire wing apart, How exactly did you see him carrying boxes from the IT room? Maybe I got the time wrong. The time or the person? Sullivan stood. Objection! Counsel is badgering the witness. Whitmore didn't even look at Sullivan. Overruled. The witness may answer. Carson wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. I saw what I saw. Isaac nodded slowly. Then he pulled out the second document. Mr. Carson, I'm holding the courthouse maintenance access log for the IT room. Every person who enters that room is required to sign in. Date, time, name, signature. It's policy. He held it up so the judge could see. On March 14th, there are 3 entries. 8 a.m., Thomas Briley, IT Department. 2:15 p.m., Thomas Briley again. And then, Isaac paused. Let the silence do the work. 11:45 p.m., Bradley Carson. The gallery stirred. Murmurs. A sharp inhale from somewhere in the back row. That's your signature, Mr. Carson. Your handwriting. You signed into the IT room at 11:45 p.m., 15 minutes after you claim you saw my father stealing from that same room. Carson's face went gray. I had a reason to be there. I was checking on equipment. Checking on equipment at 11:45 at night, 15 minutes after a theft you supposedly witnessed. Isaac took one step closer. You watched someone steal $15,000 worth of computers, and your response was to walk into the crime scene, sign your name, and say nothing until the next morning? I was going to report it. You didn't report it in the moment. You didn't call security. You didn't call 911. You didn't flag the guard at the front desk. You walked into the room, Mr. Carson. The question is, what were you carrying when you walked out? Objection! Sullivan was on his feet. Your Honor, Isaac said, his voice still level, still steady, still 18 years old, and absolutely immovable. I'd like to play the security footage. Whitmore nodded. Proceed. The technician hit play. The screen showed the second-floor East Wing corridor. Timestamp, March 14th, 11:38 p.m. The hallway was empty. No movement. No Elijah. Nothing. Then, at 11:42 p.m., a figure appeared, walking quickly, carrying 2 large boxes stacked on top of each other. Bradley Carson. Alone. Moving toward the loading dock. No janitor in sight. No second person. Just Carson, carrying the exact equipment he'd accused Elijah of stealing. The gallery erupted. Gasps. A woman covered her mouth. One of the reporters stood up. The bailiff stepped forward, hand raised, trying to settle the room. On the stand, Carson crumbled. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. His eyes shot to Sullivan. Desperate, drowning, reaching for a lifeline that wasn't coming. Sullivan sat frozen. His face was stone. But his pen, gripped between his fingers, had stopped moving 30 seconds ago. Isaac turned to the judge. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Your Honor, my father mopped these floors for 11 years. He raised 2 children alone after losing his wife. He never took anything that wasn't his. Not a pen, not a paperclip, not a single thing. He pointed at Carson. The man who stole from this courthouse is sitting right there on that witness stand. Then he pointed at Sullivan. And the man who protected him is sitting right there at the prosecution's table. The courtroom was silent. Not a murmur, not a whisper, not a breath. Judge Whitmore removed his glasses, set them on the bench, and stared at Garrett Sullivan for a very long time. Sullivan didn't move, didn't speak, didn't straighten his tie. For the first time in 30 years, Garrett Sullivan had nothing to say. Judge Whitmore let the silence sit. He didn't rush, didn't bang his gavel. He let the weight press down on every person in that room until no one could pretend they hadn't felt it. Then he spoke. "Mr. Carson, step down from the witness stand." Carson didn't move. The bailiff walked over, took his arm, and guided him down like a man walking off a ledge. Whitmore turned to Sullivan. His voice was quiet, the dangerous kind of quiet. "Mr. Sullivan, I am ordering an immediate investigation into your office's handling of this case. You will make yourself available to the County Ethics Board within 48 hours." Sullivan stood, opened his mouth, 30 years of courtroom reflexes telling him to object, to argue, to control the room. Nothing came out. He sat back down. Based on the evidence presented, the cleaning assignment log, the maintenance access records, and the security footage, this court finds that the charges against Elijah Ingram are wholly without merit. He looked at Elijah. "Mr. Ingram, all charges are dismissed. You are free to go." The gavel came down. Once. Final. Elijah didn't move. He sat staring at the judge like he was waiting for someone to say it was a mistake. Like freedom was a trick. The bailiff unlocked his cuffs. The metal fell away, and the sound, that small, sharp click, echoed louder than any gavel. Elijah stood, legs unsteady, eyes wet. Isaac was already there. He stepped forward and put his arms around his father. Right there in courtroom 3. The same room where Sullivan had called him a monkey. The same building where Elijah had mopped floors in silence for 11 years. Elijah grabbed the back of Isaac's jacket, his own jacket, still too big on his son's shoulders, and held on like a man pulled from deep water. "When did you learn all that?" Elijah whispered. Isaac held him tighter. "I learned it here, Dad. Watching you." Someone in the back row started clapping. One person. Slow. Steady. Then another. And another. Dorothy Adams stood from her seat, tears on her face, clapping with both hands pressed together like a prayer. 2 deputies approached Carson. Handcuffs clicked shut. This time on the right person. Sullivan watched from the prosecution table. His files sat open. Useless now. His 30-year record, his judgeship, his reputation, all crumbling. And the person who'd torn it down wasn't a rival attorney or a federal investigator. It was an 18-year-old kid in an oversized suit with a yellow legal pad and the truth. Judge Whitmore looked at Isaac. "Young man, in 30 years on this bench, I have seen thousands of attorneys argue thousands of cases. What I witnessed today was not luck. It was the work of a mind that understands justice, not as a theory, but as a duty." He paused. "You have a gift, Mr. Ingram. Do not waste it." "Thank you, Your Honor." Whitmore picked up his pen, wrote a note on his personal stationery, folded it, handed it to the bailiff. "See that this reaches the Dean of Admissions at the State University's Law School. Today." Isaac watched the letter leave the courtroom. A door he never could have opened by a man who finally saw him for what he truly was. Not a janitor's son. Not a black kid in a borrowed suit. A lawyer. Born and ready. 3 months later, Elijah Ingram walked back into Greenfield County Courthouse. Same front door, same marble floors, same fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But nothing was the same. The security guard at the front desk stood up. "Morning, Elijah." A clerk passed him in the hallway, smiled. "Good to see you back, Mr. Ingram." Mr. Ingram. Not the help. Not, "Hey, you." Not silence. Elijah picked up his mop. Same mop, same bucket, same route. But this time, when he cleaned the floors outside courtroom 3, people stepped around the wet spots. One lawyer stopped and said, "Take your time, sir. No rush." Sir, 11 years. That was the first time. Garrett Sullivan's office on the 3rd floor sat empty. Door locked, nameplate removed. The ethics board investigation ended his career before the month was out. 30 years of buried complaints surfaced one after another. 12 became 26. He resigned before they could fire him. No judgeship, no legacy. Just a quiet exit and a name nobody in Greenfield wanted to say out loud. Bradley Carson pleaded guilty. 2 years, no deal, no sympathy. And Isaac? Isaac received a full scholarship to the State University's law school, recommended personally by Judge Nolan Whitmore. His application essay was 4 pages long. The title? The Right to Be Believed. On his first day of classes, he wore a new suit, his own suit. It fit. But in his bag, folded carefully at the bottom, was his father's old charcoal jacket, the one with the shoulders too wide and the sleeves that needed rolling. He never wore it again, but he never left home without it. Amara asked him once why he kept it. Because it reminds me where I started. Judge Whitmore kept Isaac's original filing, the motion for family representation, handwritten on yellow legal pad paper, in his desk drawer. He showed it to young lawyers who came through his courtroom, not as a lesson, as proof. Proof that the law doesn't belong to the people with the biggest offices. It belongs to anyone brave enough to use it. If this story moved you, if you felt something watching an 18-year-old boy stand up in a courtroom and refuse to be invisible, then do me a favor. Drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked? Because of where you came from? I read every single one, and your story matters just as much as Isaac's. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, someone who's fighting a battle nobody else can see. And if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell, because stories like this one, they don't get told enough. And I'm not done telling them.
An 18-year-old, no law degree, no money, a zero legal path, and 30 minutes was all it took to end a 30-year career. But here's what stayed with me. It's not a courtroom, it's the night before. Isaac sitting at that kitchen table, hand shaking, staring at his mother's empty chair, whispering, "I got this, Mom." 3 years reading a long book alone. Nobody saw that, nobody clapped for that, but that's it what got me to courtroom 3. And Elijah, 11 years, mopping those floors, invisible, not a thank you. And the first person who finally stood up for him was his own son, wearing his father's suit. Sometimes the people who fight the hardest for you are the ones that were told to sit down. So let me ask you this: if no one believed in you, would you still believe in yourself? If every door was closed, would you still knock? Because Isaac didn't wait for anyone's permission. He just showed up, prepared, and ready. Tell me in the comments, had anyone ever underestimated you? I read every single one. Share this with someone fighting a battle nobody else can see. And subscribe, because the law doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to the one brave enough to use it.